Here are my top 6 tips to help you protect your brain long term and prevent dementia/Alzheimer's disease. I don't talk about dementia and Alzheimer's as much. I definitely should be talking about it a lot more. And one of the things that I'm so passionate about is getting more and more young people to start protecting their brain health at an earlier day and stage and age. Because when we look at Alzheimer's and dementia, the changes that actually lead to this disease in our brain start 30, 40 years ahead of time. If you're new to this channel, my name is Dr. Bisley Natalie. I'm the holistic brain doctor, and I teach people how to optimize their brain health so they can step into their peak potential and basically build the life of their dreams. So passionate talking about this subject. And this is why really I wanted to start this Hot Girl Brain movement, because I want younger women especially to start taking care of their brain health earlier. 70% of Alzheimer's dementia is actually diagnosed in women. Isn't that wild? And it's because, estrogen decreases. Estrogen is actually really protective for our brain health. And if we don't start taking care of our brain early enough, it could be too late by the time we get into our 60s and our 70s. And, if you're a woman listening and you are at that age, get help and support. You can still start making some changes now to really optimize your brain health. The other thing too is that I think that when we are younger, it's so much harder to take our brain health more seriously, especially if we're not seeing these changes immediately right now in the moment. If you are anxious, if you're depressed, if you already have some sort of mental health challenges, you are much more inclined to start taking care of your brain health earlier. But if we don't feel like our brain is broken, or if we don't see any signs that it's not functioning well, it's so hard for us to want to take the right steps so that we can start supporting our brain health earlier. And here's the thing, right? Just because you can't see something doesn't mean it doesn't need support. And that's what preventative medicine is all about. And if we can catch these things early ahead of time, if we can start developing healthy habits and implementing these healthy habits earlier in our life, the more that we really set ourselves up for success in the future. So yes, you can't see your brain right now. Yes, you can't see exactly what's going on, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be taking the right steps to prevent it. And I'm like, maybe I'm talking on the wrong crowd, because you're here watching this video. So obviously you want to prevent anything from happening to your brain. And I really think that the more of us that can start talking about this, right? Like share this fact, especially with the rest of your girlfriends, so that they're aware and that they are not just thinking about what am I doing for my body, but what am I specifically doing to support my brain health so that I can thrive, so my brain can thrive for a really, really long time. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the top 6 ways to really support your brain health earlier. Have my handy dandy laptop here. I made notes, did research, and I didn't want to memorize this because I want to read it as it is so that I can give you the most accurate information. And I don't know, I'm not about memorizing this. So let's go through. If I'm looking down, that's exactly what I'm looking down at. So let's go through what those 6 factors really are. Some of them might be new to you, some of them might not be, but by the end of this video, really thinking about how can you incorporate these things into your life. I might be coming out shortly with a course where I really dive deep into this stuff, because I've had lots of women ask me, how do you prevent dementia? How do you prevent Alzheimer's? Can you talk more about this? And really protecting your brain health as early as possible. So pillar number 1 of having really great brain health is exercise and movement. Probably not a surprise to you, but this is by far one of the best things that we can do to protect our brain and just really ensure a positive mood for us. And what's really amazing is that high levels of exercise can actually decrease dementia by 35%. That's a huge number, girl. This is not something that you just want to pass on, be like, oh, not exercise, whatever. And I really just want to explain in here what and the reasons as to why as well, right? So why is it that exercise helps and boosts our brain health so much? Number 1 is that when you exercise, it increases more blood flow to your brain. So if you have more blood flow in your brain, it means that your brain is getting more oxygen and nutrients sent to it, which is huge, right? More oxygen, more nutrients means that your brain can function at a much higher level and state. Other reasons why exercise is so helpful as well is that it promotes neurogenesis. So This means that, your brain can build new neurons and new pathways and things like that. And when you exercise, it actually helps your brain build these new cells and new pathways, which is pretty freaking amazing. Whenever I work with a woman one-to-one and we're working on changing her mindset, I always emphasize and say that you should also move your body more, because when you're moving your body and you're also implementing all these beautiful mindset changes, you're just reinforcing these pathways, because exercise and movement is helping you reinforce these neural pathways, which is pretty amazing. So if you're doing all of this mindset work, please don't forget to also move your body, because you're going to that much more reinforce these beautiful pathways. What's also awesome, I actually didn't know about this until I actually researched and looked into this. So exercise alters microglia activity in the brain. Microglia are the brain's immune cells. So different parts of your body, they have different types of immune cells, and the ones specific to the brain are microglia. Your immune cells are responsible for inflammation. So exercise actually alters microglia activity, which then lowers inflammation in your brain. Inflammation in the brain leads to so many disorders. And whenever I work with women one-on-one, inflammation is something that we address, because if your brain is inflamed, it's not getting the right nutrients. It's not functioning in the way that it should be able to function. So exercise helps to lower that, which is, I think, pretty freaking fascinating. The other piece too, and we're going to dive into this deeper, is it improves sleep health. When we move our bodies more, one of the things that I always talk about is if you're not tired enough at the end of the day and you feel really wired, like you're still really awake, you probably didn't move your body enough. A body that's been moved, it's been exerted, is a body that's tired and a body that actually wants to fall asleep at the end of the day. So if you're not moving your body enough, then your body isn't tired enough, and so you won't have a good night's sleep. So having exercise really ensures a good night's sleep. If you've ever had those days where you've gone on a long hike, or maybe you've traveled and all you've done is just walk around and move all day, like you are so tired at the end of the day. And those are some of the nights where you probably have had the best sleep of your life. I can definitely vouch and say that. The more that I move my body, the better my sleep gets. And of course, you want to make sure you're not having movement too close to bedtime, because that's actually going to have a negative impact on your sleep, because exercise usually causes us to kind of, be awake. So you really want to make sure you're not exercising too close to bedtime, so you can make sure that your body still unwinds and falls asleep. Morning time, I think it's usually really the best time to exercise. And what's really cool is when you look at this research as well, it's not just that, going to the gym for an hour and a half, that's super beneficial, but even that like everyday movement counts, right? That movement where you're running errands and you're walking around and, instead of driving, you choose to walk or bike. Those types of movements really help. And I think, really when it comes to long-term health and wellness, and even for brain health, I truly think that we need to be looking at just throughout our day, how can we get more movement? It's not enough anymore to just move your body for an hour in the morning and then to just sit all day. Research is showing that sitting all day then actually kind of takes away the effects of the exercise that we did. We need to move our bodies and make sure that we're continuing to move our bodies throughout the day, and not just like kind of, squishing movement in this 1 hour and saying this is enough. So, starting to ask yourself, how can you move your body? Can you park your car further away? Can you, recently what I've started doing is I've started aiming for 7,000 steps every day, going to work my way up to 10,000, but I'm starting with 7,000. And I noticed such a difference in my mental health and well-being. And the biggest difference, and why I feel like this has been so much more effective, is because I'm not just squishing my movement into an hour every day. Every 2.5 hours, I am making sure that I get up and move around. I feel so much more energetic. I feel so much more positive throughout the day. I have all these like wonderful and amazing ideas about things that I want to do. And it's just another beautiful way for me to just connect with myself during the day and support myself appropriately. So don't just get that 1 hour of movement. Really look at how you can get movement in throughout your day. And if you're not moving at all, you got to move. I always say movement is like medicine. And when you look at the studies, which is pretty fascinating, is movement has been compared and has shown to be just as effective as antidepressant medication for mild to moderate depression. Like how powerful and amazing. Like, I think that is just so amazing and beautiful. So pillar number one is exercise. Pillar number two is to stimulate your mind mentally. So mental stimulation. And what's been really awesome is that there was a study done, and especially later in life, right? So you might be like, my mind is already mentally stimulated. I feel like that is me right now. And I'm like, I could use less mental stimulation right now. But when we're looking at mental stimulation, a really big emphasis is, especially later on in life, because what happens to a lot of people is that, they retire. So they're not really mentally stimulating themselves in any way. They're just kind of like sitting at home, they're watching TV, and they're not really doing anything that's like mentally challenging their mind in some way. And that's very important to do, right? Like, if we're not using our brain and challenging it, it's not going to be as strong. And I always say, if you want a strong brain, you got to do more of what makes you uncomfortable. And already, even though you might feel like you're very mentally stimulated, do more of what makes you uncomfortable. Stimulate your mind in different ways. I remember, when I looked at like Alzheimer's pages and stuff, there were some ideas of like, if you always eat with your right hand, eat with your left hand. Engage different areas of your brain, right? I just thought of, I was like, if we do makeup with our right hand, do it with our left hand. And I was like, I cannot do that. My eyeliner would probably, be like on my eyebrow. But challenge your brain in different ways and see, can I do things differently? Sometimes what I'll do is I'll try to take the path and the directions that I need to go into, because I just find that it's amazing that we have so many tools and devices around us, but those tools and devices also sometimes make it hard for us to challenge our brain, because our brain just becomes so dependent on them. And so just trying to get creative to see if there's new challenges that you can do so that your brain feels stimulated and challenged. And what's really awesome is that they did this study, and in this study, 30% of older adults ended up having the diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. And so they had enough of those beta amyloid plaques and tau proteins build up, but they didn't show any symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. And that's because they were mentally stimulated. They were doing things that mentally stimulated them on a daily basis. So I think that's pretty amazing and powerful that, they had these build up that could equal a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease, but they actually didn't have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease because they just didn't have the symptoms of it. So I think that's pretty fascinating. So get creative and think about what are the different ways you can mentally stimulate your brain. Similarly to this, another pillar is social activity. So important. Loneliness kills. Loneliness literally kills. I've looked at so many studies of older adults and individuals, and it's shown that loneliness is actually a risk factor for early death. So very important that you maintain social connections. And honestly, this is something that I constantly have to check in with myself, and something that I'm now starting to do with my boyfriend is every single week, we're going to essentially have a weekly fun night, date night, whatever you want to call it. And this is where we're going to do something fun every single night. And sometimes it's with friends, sometimes it's with us, just ourselves, but really making sure you're getting that connection. Something else I also did too is, because I work from home so much, I actually started renting a co-working spot, and it's honestly one of my favorite places to go to now. Just so nice to just get out of the house, connect with other people, and just get that social interaction. What's really interesting here is that when you look at the studies, it's not just about having, spending like a couple hours with friends during the week, but even social interactions, like you just get out of your house and you have like a 2-minute conversation at the coffee shop, or you go to your local grocer. All of these types of interactions count. And so sometimes we just need to get out of our house. On one of my coaching calls I did with my community and group, which is the Hot Girl Brain community. By the way, if you are ready to get support for your brain health and you're just like, I, want to protect my brain, I want to reach my peak potential, I recommend book a free brain health assessment with me so we can talk more about what this plan looks like for you. But I was speaking to my Hot Girl Brain community, and one of the participants of the program, she was just talking about how she's been feeling really anxious and stressed out these past couple of days. And I asked her, I was like, have you left your house? Like just this one question. And she's like, haven't left my house in 3 days. And I was like, yep, well, let's, get out of your house and then we'll come back and check in to see how you're doing. But see, something as small as this, like, I don't know about you, but sometimes if I'm at home for too long, oh man, I'm just like, my life sucks. What am I doing? Is this work that I'm putting in? Is this even worth it? Like, who even watches my videos? Like, what am I doing? Like, I just get so in my head. And then when I step outside, have some interactions, I'm just like, okay, you know what? Life is actually okay. I think I'm doing just fine. So having these little interactions makes a big difference. And I really try to now, when I go out, I try to have these like little interactions. I try to like connect with people. If I'm standing in line or at the grocery store, if someone's doing something, or at the gym, like, just making little comments and having these little interactions, or even in the elevator, like, how's your day going? Hope you're having a good day. Like, we just don't do these things anymore, or as much as we used to. And social media has plays such a big role in that, right? So have these little social interactions and connections. Don't just stay in your little bubble, because your brain is literally going to thank you for it long term. And what's interesting too is that when we have more of these like social activities and interactions, there was a study done to show that people who interacted more tend to be less susceptible to risk factors like depression, obesity, alcohol misuse, right? So protective against these factors that can then harm and damage our brain health long term, right? So get that social activity in, but make sure you're also having these like daily interactions. And if you ever notice yourself feeling like, life feels bleh, what do? Go back to these things. Go back to that social activity. Make sure you're actually getting out of your house. Let's keep moving through the pillars. The next pillar is diet. I can't not talk about diet, and I'm so glad that this is a pillar of great brain health, because it always should be. Because your diet and the foods that you eat is what your brain then uses to build your feel-good hormones and nutrients. And if you're not eating the right foods, then your brain literally doesn't have the tools it needs to build any of these things. So optimizing diet, and to be honest with you, I know like diet is one of the most challenging things to optimize and be optimized with it long term. I'm going to create a whole other video talking about how do you really optimize diet for your brain health in a way that's really simple and easy, because it actually isn't that hard. I've really simplified it for myself, and it's honestly so easy for me to be consistent with this diet long term. So stay tuned for that video. But when we look at diet, one of the best diets that's been researched for brain health is the MIND diet. I'm not too big on choosing a specific diet and trying to kind of stick with that. My whole thing is about choosing better food groups for you. So for example, we know that vegetables are really great. We know proteins are important. We know that fats are important. So I like to emphasize these like bigger food groups instead of like a specific diet. But because this is one of the biggest and most researched diets for brain health, it's the MIND diet. And so when it comes to the MIND diet, some of the biggest brain health foods it emphasizes are green leafy vegetables, nuts and berries, beans, whole grains, fish and poultry, olive oil, and red wine. Questionable, I always say red wine, questionable. I don't think there's anything wrong with having maybe like a glass here and there. But also, in order for us to really have a positive impact from red wine and the resveratrol from red wine, like we literally have to drink gallons of it. It doesn't really have as much resveratrol, which is supposed to be the healthy compound, but whatever, it's in there, so cool. The unhealthy foods to avoid are things like, probably obvious ones to you, the red meat, butter, margarine, cheese, pastries, sweets, fried, and fast foods, right? No surprise there. And the other big thing really here that we often forget about is trying to incorporate as much colorful plant foods. This is something, honestly, that I struggle with too, and I have to be mindful of. What happens to a lot of us is that we end up eating the same types of vegetables and plant foods over and over again. Like broccoli and cucumber and cauliflower and carrots and, sometimes spinach. So if you end up eating the same foods over and over and over again, they really stop having that beneficial impact on your body. Your body loves to be surprised. Your body loves variety. And what's really cool is that when you look at different foods, the reason that plant foods are different colors is because of the phytochemicals. That's what gives them their color. So a tomato has different phytochemicals than beets, which has different phytochemicals than spinach, which is green, which has different phytochemicals than cauliflower, right? Which has different phytochemicals than carrots, which are orange. So all these different foods have all these different phytochemicals, and this is what leads to their color. So if you're eating just green vegetables all the time, you need to add more variety. You should have some greens and some oranges and some purples and some reds. And so when you go to the grocery store, a quick tip is look, when you go to that vegetable aisle and when you get all your vegetables, make sure you have tons of different colors in there. The more variety and more colorful your fruits and vegetables are, the more nutrients that you're getting in, because each different phytochemical that leads to a different color has different nutrients. And our body needs all these different nutrients, and your body just loves variety. Variety is a spice and key to life. So have more variety and make sure you're really incorporating more colorful fruits and vegetables. Awesome. Next one is sleep. That's the next pillar. Should not be a surprise here. Something I also need to work on. I really feel like I should be getting more sleep, and I'm not getting more sleep. So sleep, when your brain is able to get to a really restful, deep state of sleep, it's where the brain really repairs itself. What's really awesome is that, so these beta amyloid, this is not awesome. The beta amyloid plaques is what leads to Alzheimer's diagnosis in the future. And what's really awesome about sleep is that sleep helps to clear away these waste products. So when you go and get that deep, restful state of sleep, it actually gives your brain an opportunity to clear away these waste proteins like the beta amyloid plaques that build up in your brain. I thought that was just so fascinating. And when I saw that in the research, I really was like, okay, I need to have a good night's sleep. Like I need to, and I need to just allow myself to sleep more. So many of us are just not sleeping enough, or we have really poor sleep routines that don't allow our body to get into a deep, restful state. Again, I feel like I'm going to make another video on this so I can really dive deeper into this. And the research shows that about 7 hours a day has been associated with the best outcomes. So getting enough sleep, super important, and not even just helping us clear away waste products, but getting more sleep improves focus and attention and memory. And I'm sure that you can relate to this, but I know that I am like a raging bitch the next day if I don't get a good night's sleep. I'm just so irritable, so angry, so tired. I barely get any sort of work done. I'm 100% going to pick a fight with my boyfriend, and it's just overall not going to be the best day for me. So trying to get enough sleep is just so critical and important to me, and I really try my best to do that, and it should be something that you should highly prioritize in your life. I truly think that out of sleep diet movement, sleep is the number one for me, right? That's my personal opinion, but if I have a good night's sleep, I make better choices about my health and body the next day. That's why if there's anything I'm going to start with, it's going to be sleep. And then the last one, that last pillar of optimizing and having great brain health, is stress management. Should also not be a surprise to you, right? A lot of us, we just have such poor coping strategies. And I think that's what this really comes down to is if you have extremely poor coping strategies, you're not going to be able to have large emotional resilience. And those of us that have really great brain health have a huge capacity to be able to cope with challenges and to be able to handle them. So if you want great brain health, this is something that you really need to figure out how to manage in your life. When you have stress come up, what do you do about it? Do you run away? Do you turn to alcohol? Do you start fights? Do you, isolate yourself from everybody around you? You need to learn how to cope better, because when you cope better with stress, it increases your stress tolerance. It increases your ability and resilience to handle really big challenges and things. And if you don't, then stress over time will increase blood pressure, it increase your blood sugar, inflammation, and let's not forget that stress impacts our sleep. So many of us, we can't sleep because we're just so stressed out. We're just so wired, and our body can't fall into like a really nice, restful state of sleep. Your body needs to be in a calm state if you want to go to sleep. You can't be in this like really, really stressed out state. Your body's never going to fall asleep if you're in this really stressed out state. So managing your stress, learning how to cope better. And again, reach out to me. I love teaching women how to cope better, because when you cope better, you feel more confident. You take more risks. You feel happier and better about yourself. And you feel like the things outside of you don't impact you and hurt you and affect you that much, because you know you can handle anything that comes your way. And I think that is by far like the most powerful mindset to have, this mindset of just like, I can handle anything that comes my way. Like stress is nothing in the face of those people that have that mindset. So there you have it. Those are the 6 pillars. I'm going to be coming out with a course / more videos just to talk about these things a bit more in depth, so you can get some really cool and great tips as to how you can really optimize these areas more specifically in your life. So let's review what the 6 pillars are. Number 1 is to exercise, get that movement. Number 2, get that mental stimulation. Number 3, gets that social activity, right? And that everyday social activity. Number four, I can't really do number 4. Number 4 is to optimize your diet. Number 5, optimizing your sleep. And then number 6, stress management and just really learning how to cope better. And the last thing that I'm just going to emphasize again is that the earlier you start taking care of your brain, the better for you. Because again, those changes that lead to brain disorders in the future and long term, it's because we don't start taking care of our health early enough. And these changes start 30 to 40 years ahead of time. I know you can't see your brain. I know that it feels hard to take care of things you can't see, and especially things that aren't broken, because our healthcare system, that's how it's set up. We only treat things and take care of things if they're broken, but we really need to change that up. Just because something isn't broken doesn't mean you need to take care of it. You don't need to take care of it. We need to take care of things before they break so that they don't break. And so let this be the words of encouragement, inspiration, and empowerment for you to start taking care of your brain at an early stage. Comment below and let me know which pillar you're going to start off with.